What do you mean?
Vern Funquist, CFB.
We're live now, Drew. Have some professionalism for
yes,
one.
I apologize. Yes, I'm sorry. Allow me to retweet this on @DrewButler. Follow @DrewButler. Shameless plug.
We're gonna, you know what? That's the whole show.
There you go.
You already did it.
@Punt and Pass, @DrewButler, Twitter, Instagram, X, anything you want. There you go. How are you, brother? Thanks for having me on.
Of course, to be clear right off the bat, the multiple accounts that you plugged, those are just different accounts. These are not new accounts you've had to start over from saying something inappropriate on Twitter, or what's that like?
I like to, I saw a great tweet from my buddy Jimmy Traina. I don't know if you follow Jimmy, but he longtime SI guy, sports media guy, and he did an interview with Bill Raftery. Obviously, that's timely with the March Madness going on. And Bill Raftery does not have any social media. And they asked, why don't you have social media? And Raftery said, well, at 11:30 p.m. after my 10th drink, I'm liable to tweet something out that'll cost me my job. So he doesn't have social media. I think before I press send, I probably don't use social media as much as clearly as much as you. I mean, you've leaned into it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I'd rather follow you fighting with people than actually fight with people. That's my form of
anyway. I mean, so this is let's hold on. Welcome into the show, everyone.
Thank you.
Chris Marler here. It is our third or fourth episode of Fourth and Wrong. It's been a tremendous success so far, so we really appreciate you guys growing the show in the comments, all that kind of stuff. Like and share, retweet, all the good stuff. We really, really appreciate it. Join with a special guest today, and this will be a consistent theme. Something we might talk about later, Drew, with you and I in the off season. And doing some shows about college football. But welcome in our guest, former UGA legend. I always say the greatest American punter of this generation, which doesn't really mean shit because he's not Australian, but Drew Butler.
Thank you. Yeah, you're like a top 5 fan, and I have 5 fans, so I appreciate you being in there, Marler. Thank you.
Yeah. What I was going to say was, I feel like I've gotten, this is going to sound stupid, but I feel like I've gotten better on Twitter with arguing. Maybe just because I have less people.
100%. I mean, not even before your last account got clipped, as Evan Grimes said in the comments, you're much better. And that's probably good for just your general state of living. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, man, obviously college football show first. There's this time of year is my favorite time of year. We got opening day next week. March Madness is going on right now. As you jokingly
2 weeks away.
Masters 2 weeks away. Georgia right now up 12 in the NIT.
I'm watching it right here, dude. It's awesome. I mean, it's good.
I meant to text you beforehand. I thought they would be favored even though they're on the road. A 9-point underdog felt like a lock.
They were 9-point dogs. I didn't even look at that.
Yeah.
Now let me just say this, and obviously I've been in the NIL space since the beginning, and my favorite people to follow are the lawyers in the NIL space.
Yeah.
You don't need to get into that mess. I tweet at them sometimes. That's like the only people I kind of chirp at. I respect them because they're way smarter than me. I'll say that first off. But when all of the teams simply completely opted out of the NIT, I kind of thought to myself, that sucks, right? Because there are players on those teams who want to play. There are backups. There are walk-ons. They want to play. I have a very hard time believing that unanimously the team's like, nope, we're done. We don't want to play. Now, for a team like Georgia and Coach White and all these transfers, and they're young, they need to learn how to do one thing. They need to learn how to win games. And that's what they're doing. I mean, the NIT, call it the not invited tournament, call it the not important tournament, whatever you want to call it. They're fighting, and they're trying to put a trophy in the case, regardless of what it is. And if they win this game, they get to go to Madison Square Garden. That's awesome. So it's been fun watching.
Honestly, it was weird, and I'm not going to blanket statement your fan base, but your fan base, at least on my timeline, was the loudest of it because the person who was the loudest on ESPN about skipping these games was Tom Crean. Tom Crean did that when he was at Georgia, right? So it comes from
not when he was at Georgia, when he was at Indiana, but yes.
Okay, so you're right. Like it was like 2014, and it's one of those things where it's like it does come off. That does come off as hypocritical. We've talked a lot about this offseason, NIL stuff, Saban, Kirby, Kiffin, whether or not it's hypocritical to make comments just because of the tax bracket you're in doesn't mean that you can't weigh in on college sports, which is crazy to me that we're even having that conversation. But this this thing with Korean, he made a good point. It's just probably the wrong vessel of the message because it's like, I mean, but he's right. Like, dude, I tell you what, I talk about playing college baseball, like, a decent amount on here. And my freshman year, I was like undersized. I was like in over my head when it came to like the college game. Like I just wasn't expecting to be that difficult. And some of the best times I had in my freshman year was like, we would play JUCOs and like in the fall and stuff like that. And it was like to get, to recruit JUCOs, but I got to start in all those games hitting the 3-hole. That was awesome. Like some of these kids that would get to like play in the NIT, like why would you not create that opportunity?
It's awesome. Coaches love to coach. Players love to play. And I'm sick and tired, and I'm a huge golf fan. I think many people probably know that if you follow me. Like the nonstop talking about live and the money and the VIP and the money and the money. Of course, we all work for money. This is America.
Right.
It's capital. We all love money, right?
Yeah.
But you love the sport as well. College football coaches are total sickos. They are obsessed with football. They are obsessed with developing players. They are obsessed with coaching. If you asked Kirby Smart right now, what day is it? He's liable not to know. Like he is so locked into spring practice right now. He's worried about the depth chart. He's worried about developing the guys who just got on campus. That's across the board in college football. These guys love to coach. They want to see these kids get better. And the good players, they love to get coached. They love to play. Yeah. It's so much more than just, let's sit out because we're not getting paid. That blanket statement drives me crazy. And I feel like now I'm the old guy with 3 kids and I'm about to be 35, like yelling at the clouds. But that's just how I feel. It's just changed so much in 10 plus years. It's crazy.
I love the way you started it because it sounded like a Taylor Swift song. And you were like, players are going to play. Coaches love to coach. That's haters going to hate.
They do. You're exactly right.
But like, I will also say this. So like from 2 sides of it, devil's advocate of it, maybe you make the case of like, you're a head coach. Maybe you're burnt out. Maybe you're like, I need a break. But like,
that's fair.
Again, it's like 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get like as much of a jump on anything. And also you're talking about like, this isn't football where you need to go have a ton of roster turnover, a ton of recruiting and stuff like that. You're talking about 4 guys in a class. So it's not like they need to have all for recruiting.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think that it's interesting because, and we'll get into like the whole show here in a second. This has been good. But Kirby said something, I think this weekend I was listening to Josh Pate, and he made the comment about Kirby saying this about the NIL stuff. And it's talking about like roster turnover and all that kind of stuff. He made the comment, if you would just tell me what my roster was, just tell me what my roster is in spring, I'd be fine with everything else. And I think what we're seeing here is like, we saw it with Saban, we've seen it with other people, and some people have adjusted to it and adapted to it quicker than others. But there's just so much change across the landscape of college football in all of the sports that I think a lot of coaches are having a hard time trying to figure out, like, okay, like how do I navigate all this? Like Katie Johnson entered the portal today. I thought he was I thought he graduated 8 years ago.
He's been playing college basketball forever.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember like during COVID, wasn't he still playing? I mean, it's been a long time since
Georgia.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like the transfer portal, we could do a whole show on this. The transfer portal is the gasoline that has been thrown on the college sports fire right now. NIL has been bastardized. We all know that. But what's happening in the transfer portal to stick up for the coaches, like a Kirby or with Saban retiring or anybody, it doesn't even matter what coach you are, to sit there and be developing these guys in spring and have to wonder on April 15th if they're just going to be like, you know what, I'm out. To have to wonder if people are text messaging parents and players on your roster trying to get them to up and leave. That is so crazy because in any other sport, specifically the NFL, let's just compare college football to the NFL. That is so against the rules. And those are almost the worst things you can do because you lose draft picks. Coaches get fined. Teams get fined. You lose like the rules in the NFL for tampering are so extreme because it's the one thing that's holy. You have to be in your contract. And of course the lawyers will say, well, then you got to be guys, it's nuts. That's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to these kids. It's not fair to the coaches. It's not fair to the fans. That's what sucks. It's just the unmitigated free agency across college football. I'm very, very against that.
Well, I tell you what, too, is it's funny. The word you used was, I think it was, because I wasn't listening to anything you said as always, but the thing you said about how you have to wonder if other people. There's
Yeah,
no wondering, man.
of
You know
course.
it's happening,
Yes.
and then you're talking about being Kirby Smart, and you're like this is where I think it has to get frustrating for him now. Not even like mentioning Saban, but Saban gets frustrated because it's like, all right, I'm bringing all these guys in, and I can promise them, hey, you're going to be an NFL first round pick. You're going to be an NFL draft pick. I can
That
develop.
was the
I can
value
develop you
prop.
in the league.
Absolutely.
And right. And now you're talking about with Kirby, it's like, okay, I'm going to do all that, and I'm going to win national championships. Like this guy's gone. It's not even close to see who's number two. It's me. I'm one, and there's no one that's 1B, right? I am one of one. And now you got to sit here and be like, well, shit, man. If I didn't play that kid enough in garbage time, or he's not getting started, I have to worry about other teams like texting him, like recruiting him, all kinds of. Here's the thing that stood out the most to me. This is where we end up starting the show in quotes. That Pate said. Josh Pate made a comment about how crazy that the landscape of college football is going to be after April, where he said every single player is open and fair game. He said he talked to one university that had like, and it was like a significant university in the landscape of college football, very relevant. And he said he talked to like about one position group, and they said, we already know at the end of August, they're in spring practice right now. We already know at the end of August who is going where. And we already know who's leaving, and it's going to be
End of April.
a ton of turnover.
End of April.
And then on top of that, what's that?
End of April. You said end of August.
Oh, my bad. End of April,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And they already know where they're going. And instead, on top of that, they already know who they're going to backload onto the roster to fill those spots from other schools.
It's insane. It's insane. It's totally insane, and we can move on after this. I was on a panel at the Gwinnett Rotary Club with Matt Stinchcomb, who's brilliant, and Ben Hartsock, who I've known forever. Ben lives in the Atlanta area, longtime NFL vet, very, very smart. He's a commentator now on Big Ten Radio, does some ESPN stuff as well, SEC or Sirius XM, and we were discussing just how much everything's changed. And I said, now, being the dad, having 3 kids, being back in Georgia, looking back on my first 2 years of college, Coach Bobo recruited me. Recruiting was one call once a month because I was a no-name punter. Stacy Searles was the offensive line coach when I was at Georgia. He's back at Georgia now. Those guys used to ride my ass just because I was in the way. I lived with a quarterback and a lineman. They'd be like, I hate that my quarterback and lineman live with a punter, Silver Spoon, Country Club. They did it every single day. I earned their respect. I'm so thankful for the way they coached me now. I get to go back. I get to talk to them. We laugh. Hey, coach, remember this? Like, those are the things where they're testing you. They want to see how you react. They're building you up as a person. You stick around, you work harder, you earn that respect. Now, if they do that, kids are liable to say, you know what? I don't like the way you talk to me. I'm transferring. That is bad for everybody involved. It's bad for everybody involved.
I quit mid-year, man. I quit mid-year. One of the biggest mistakes of my life. I quit mid-year because we played a nobody. And every other player, I think, got in that weekend, like that wasn't a pitcher besides me. And I took it so personally. I remember telling my coach afterwards, and I was like, yeah, man, I was the only one that didn't play. Like, that felt like you were sending a message because I had zero idea that was happening. And he was like, I played a bunch of freshmen that will never play again the rest of the season. You were going to be like on, travel roster. You're on this, you're like one of the main 25 guys we have that we have to travel with. Like, and I was so bent out of shape about it. And anyway, so it's just, there are some kids, the softer kids like me, that are going to have a hard time with this. All right. But it brings me to this point. This will be our first topic here. One of the things he said, what Pate said, was anyone's fair game. I don't feel like that's completely true. I get what he's saying, but I feel like there's got to be 3 to 5 guys that we could either agree on or each have that would be locks to not leave where they currently are. Maybe it is as bad as things. Maybe I saw rumors today on Twitter. I don't know how real they are, that Quinshon Judkins might want to come back to Ole Miss. I don't know if he'd be welcome back. I also don't know how valid those reports are.
Yeah.
But if I was making a list of players not to leave, it would start and stop for me with Carson Beck.
For sure.
I think there's not a better situation he is going to find himself in. Evan Grimes makes a really good point. Starting quarterbacks will stay. There's not a better situation he'll find himself in. So that's where it would start with me. What are some other guys you think that like would maybe not even just quarterback guys that would have zero reason to leave where they currently are?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Evan makes a great point. A guy like Carson Beck, his head coach and his offensive coordinator are staying. He's got just an embarrassment of riches at the skill position.
Yeah.
Georgia's the #1 team or #2 team wherever you look heading into the season. He's going to stay. I think for the most part as well. Like I keep forgetting, and I have to remind myself: 12 teams are going to the playoff this year.
I know.
12 teams are going to the playoff
Yeah.
this year. It's crazy. So the mindset heading into the season is depth, right? Is going to be taking care of everybody, making sure we peak towards the end of the season because the season's getting longer. So instead of just looking at your Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, now it is those Ole Misses. Now it is those Penn States to where they're actually in the locker rooms now with spring practice starting going, we're going to the playoffs this year. Like it's happening. We don't have to worry about being number 5 because 5 is going. 5 through 12 is in the playoff. So I think that mindset shifts a little bit. I know I'm not giving you the exact answer that you're looking for because, of course,
not at all.
The starting quarterbacks. But you'd have to think that the mindset of the players now for those top 15 programs are like, okay, well, hey, once we get to December and the playoffs are there, we all have a chance. So I don't think it would be as crazy as it would be a year ago where it's like, I got to go get to one of these top 4 teams.
I would agree with that. I will say this. We did a show on this a while back. I think it was when I was doing solo. And I was saying how there may not be, if they expand the playoffs, which they've already done, of course, there may not be a team in the country that will benefit more than Notre Dame. And I brought up the fact that if you remember this, Notre Dame, when they were in the BCS era, all Notre Dame had to do was to win 10 games, 10 out of 12 games to get an automatic berth into a BCS game. Like that's insane to me. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of insane they didn't go to more, to be honest. But 10 wins or more, they get in. If you look at it now, that's kind of how it's set up to be, in my opinion, because they are the fool's gold of strength of schedule, man. Like, it is. I don't give a shit. I say it it seems like I say it every month now on this podcast. I don't give a shit they played Air Force or I don't give a shit they played Boston College in Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park. I don't care. I just don't care. But I tell you what, there's another team that might benefit more to this than anyone. And you want to talk about fool's gold using that phrase to characterize a team? Penn State.
Yeah.
Penn State stays in the top 12
of course.
and does nothing.
They just, they middle over there in the Big Ten East. They can't get over that Ohio State, Michigan hump. But since they play in that division or now, that conference or however you want to describe it, they'll lose 2 games. Those 2 teams that they lose to will be in the top 7. And just by default, they'll be in that 10-12 range or 7 to 12 range. So pencil in Penn State for the playoff. I think they're going to be there. Pencil in Ole Miss by almost the same metric because the teams that Ole Miss is going to lose to this year will be those top 5 echelon teams. And their strength of schedule and their good losses will have them be right in that range.
Well, and here, and I'll piggybacking off that, there is like 2 years ago when Bama didn't make the playoff and should not have made the playoff. Again, to be clear, when they lost 2 games and they were like 5th, whatever, the quality of loss was the argument. I think Saban was just the PR disaster that he was going on that Big Ten championship Saturday on Fox on Fox, whatever. You might see an argument now being made for quality of loss because it like losing 2 games. This is much more of a how do we manage the full season? I think one of the things I said a while back.
You're exactly right. That's what I was alluding to with depth and just the length of the schedule and managing the guys that are managing your health, managing your roster. Absolutely. Totally agree.
Well, and now you, like you said earlier, you said you want to be peaking late. Like there's not a team I feel like we watched in 2022, man. Georgia at one point in that season where they went 15-0 wasn't the #1 team in the country because Tennessee was. And Tennessee deserved it. Tennessee deserved to be on there because of the fact that they had beaten like 5 ranked teams or something like that. This is okay. Yeah, I like what AJ Patel's saying too. We'll get into that in the next segment too as well. But I will say this: taking it a step further and just talking about Penn State because it's just now hitting me about this. The Penn State thing, man, it's this better than anybody. It's hard to beat a team twice, right? It's really hard to beat a team twice. So if Penn State goes 10-2, and they've got 2 losses to Michigan and Ohio State, and then they get into the playoff and get to play them again, there may not be a team in the country that will benefit more from this situation than Penn State because of that.
And the way they lose to those teams, usually the Ohio State game kind of close. Michigan, the offense just completely disappears. Michigan runs the ball for the entire second half. It's like Penn State doesn't even show up. And that probably will happen again. Yet they will be ranked in 7 through 12 range. And of course, they'll get into the playoff. And, if they host that first home game in Happy Valley, like that will be an electric atmosphere. Do not get it twisted. It will be a couple days before Christmas. It'll be cold. That place will be packed out. Like that is what the College Football Playoff Committee wants, people. And they'll probably
that could be good for football.
It could be good for football. Absolutely.
I mean, but like I'll say this too. If we get, I think that setting, watching a Penn State team play, maybe they play another blue blood. Like watching Penn State play Texas at home in a whiteout in December is awesome, right? Like that's awesome. But at the same time, I think where you'll see the issue arise is if that becomes stale and we see Penn State do this every year, that's when you're gonna be like, what the hell are we doing, guys? I'll tell you what, the other person on this graphic that I think I wouldn't say he's a lock not to leave. I think that Evan Grimes probably made the best point, which was the idea of quarterbacks being the most likely to not leave. One, they've already probably got the biggest check on the team, right? I think like Carson was rumored to have around 1.2 to 1.5 million. Peyton Thorne got 390,000 from last year, which is wild. The other guy on this list,
good for him.
Awesome. I mean,
that's awesome.
That will most
shitload of money for a college student. Yeah.
You imagine how far that money goes in a college town, by the way?
A long way, especially where you're not having to pay much. You're at the facility from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day. You don't really have an opportunity to just let loose. So,
yeah,
sweet.
That's fair. So the other person on this list, and I love Mizzou. Anybody that listens to this show knows that I always kind of white knight for Mizzou, and I really like them. And I think they're going to be great next year. I really do. But Luther Burden is somebody that people are talking about as being a top 3 and possibly number 1 overall pick in the draft.
Come on.
I swear to God.
Number 1 overall pick?
It was on Twitter, Drew. Okay.
So we believe it.
Well, I believe everything I see on Twitter.
Yes.
But no, this is like, listen, there's also a bazillion mock drafts. Like, to use Georgia again as an example, I mean, Jake Fromm was the projected number 1 overall pick one time by Matt Miller, who's like a respected name.
I know. I remember Dan Orlovsky was saying he's going to be a first rounder too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I had to do, what I do best, which is nerd out and deep dive and get out my pencil and start writing down stats in my notebook. And Luther Burden, one of the things I feel like we're not talking enough about Luther Burden, I think he's really good. I think he's really talented. If you look at his numbers, dude, you look at his numbers from a year ago, and here I'll pull them up real quick because I'm not prepared like ever. But he had
probably important to note too before you dive into the stats. Brady Cook is coming back as well, so he's got a great starting quarterback. Eli Drinkwitz is obviously known as an offensive guy, so those factors play into the assumption that Luther Burden's going to have a huge year.
And Schrader's gone.
Yes, which hurts because he was elite. That kid was a total stud.
Yeah, and he also, if you look at it, and somebody pointed this out to me on Twitter earlier, this kind of coincides with what it kind of coincides with what was going on in the second half of the season. Is when he kind of emerged. But you look at these numbers: 86 receptions, 1,212 yards, 9 touchdowns. Right. I'm gonna say this, even though I love Mizzou and I think that he'll be good this year. I think he'll be a star player. Is Luther Burden overrated? And I think the answer is yes, because I mean, look at these numbers. They're great numbers, man. Great numbers. But you look at the first 6 games he played. South Dakota. Wait, I don't even know what the school is, man. South Dakota Coyotes. That's who they opened with. MTSU, ranked Kansas State, Memphis, Vandy, ranked LSU. We all know how about that LSU defense.
LSU was,
terrible. His first 6 games, he had 5 touchdowns. He had 7 or more receptions in every single game. And he had 132 receiving yards per game. That's stellar.
Of course.
Played 2 ranked opponents. You look at the last 7 games of the year. Last 7, he played 4 ranked opponents, right?
What did he do against Georgia? Because that was a really physical game. There wasn't much airing out in that game, if I remember.
3 for 53 and 1 touchdown. Pretty good. I mean, that is an outlier I would probably keep out just because of the fact that Luther Burden lined up against Kamari Lassiter. you're going to see that at the next level. But
That's
like
best on best. Yeah, for sure.
right. So, and I believe that touchdown was in the first half. I think it was it was their first or second score of the game. But the last 7 games, you played more ranked opponents, like I said. He had one game over 100 yards. He only had one game where he had 7 or more catches. And he ended up with 32 total catches as opposed to 54 in the first 6, for a average of 59.9 yards per game and only 4 touchdowns.
That's not
why
number
is
one
no one
overall.
talking about that?
So I think there's a big delta, to use a business term, between those statistics and being deemed, the best player in the country, number 1 overall draft pick. You want to see somebody absolutely pop on tape, like a Marvin Harrison Jr., where you're like, this is an absolute stud. He's going to start day 1 in the NFL. Will Luther Burden start day 1 in the NFL? I don't know. I really don't know. I'd be interested to know, because that's a lot of receptions. How many targets he had? Is he pulling the ball down, 65% of the time where he's getting thrown his way? Is it higher than that? Those are the things where guys are going to scout, watch him. How does he do against cover 2? How does he do against man zone? All that type of stuff. And I think I want to reiterate what you're saying. He's a great player. There's no doubt. Mm-hmm. He is a high-level SEC talent, but being the number 1 overall draft pick as a skill player, that is in another stratosphere. He's going to have a hell of a 2024 against really good opponents to validate, predictions like that.
Yeah, agreed. All right, where do we want to go next? We got to get to the bridge thing.
Please. Oh, yeah, the Baltimore bridge. That's great. Did you like what I just sent you?
So I did, and there's multiple reasons why. I think it's something we should talk about, because maybe this becomes a recurring segment because of conspiracy theories. We are 0 for 1 on conspiracy theories currently, because
between us,
I thought, dude, I was the whisper this because I feel so bad about it. Maybe I owe the royal family an apology, but I just thought Kate Middleton was dead. I was on Sirius XM last week talking with Doring, and he's like, "What do you think happened?" I was like, "I think she's dead." 2 days later, she comes out and was like, "Oh my gosh, I had cancer. Thank you for all your support." And like all of Twitter was like,
so this is on that topic. Jackie and I, my wife, we were in Sedona for our 10-year anniversary at the beginning of this month. So beautiful spot. We had a blast. Well, one of the nights we're sitting out there by the fire at this awesome resort we stayed at, and this lovely British couple sits down next to us. So we start chatting, and on the plane ride there, I got deep into the Kate Middleton conspiracy black hole. And I'm sitting there with Jackie. I'm like, "Are you aware of this? It's a 4-hour flight out to Phoenix." She's like, "No." So, of course, these British people walk up to us, and I'm like, "What do you guys think about Kate Middleton?" This is the beginning of the month. They're like, "What do you mean?" They had no idea about the American conspiracy theories. I was like, "She's gone. Like, she's missing." They're like, "What are you talking about?" So we go through this entire thing, and they're like, "You Americans are so crazy." And it's funny looking back. Obviously, what has since come out is tragic, and I hope she has a full recovery. But at the time, the British people, they think extremely highly of the royal family, and I come in as just this, red-haired American guy. I'm like, "Oh yeah, nobody's seen her since Christmas. She's gone." So, it's crazy.
Well, it's also like, it's funny too, because like I understand like that reaction to you is like, you Americans are blah blah blah, and it's like, well, like, it's not like you could put it. This is a country, and I withheld from saying the effort there, so I feel like I deserve a trophy right now. But
congratulations.
This is a country that in 2024 is still like, we actually believe that there's a royal family that passed down with all these incredible genetics. They are better than everyone else. Also, side note, no one with perfect genetics looks like that. Like, no one with perfect genetics is as ugly as that fucking family. Excuse my language.
It's just, the fascination with them. Like you said, one of Jack, my wife, to bring her up again, one of her very close friends has worked at ABC News for a very long time, and she was the royal family correspondent. She lived in London, and if news broke, she was on Good Morning America leading the 7:00 hour with hard news from Buckingham Palace. That was her beat. It's fascinating stuff. Yeah.
She was the Pat 40 of the royal family. You know what I would love?
Yes, that's exactly what she was.
In a fantasy world, like the Mike Griffith of the royal family would be awesome.
Yeah, who is that guy in Britain? I'd love to know who that is. I would love to know who that is. And he's
Dude,
worked
listen,
for
let me tell
some
you something
other
right now. England,
families. He's worked at some
yeah,
competing families who like don't believe in the royal family, but then he got his big break. Now he's all in on the royal family. And I love Mike Griffith.
just
He knows that.
constantly shitting on America as like
Yes.
the Saban versus Kirby dynamic.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Um, that's good.
And
We'll
he
get to
is
the we'll get to
American. And he is American, though. That's the best part because that guy has to be an American who has the royal family
yeah.
beat. But now he hates America.
I love
That's
that.
that's
I
how
love
it
all
makes
that.
sense. Yes.
Okay, so we have other topics here. We can talk about this. The USC recruiting push.
It's
I really
interesting. I mean, Lincoln Riley is a great recruiter. That's always been known.
right. Let's not spend too much time on it, but it is interesting because they've gone out and gotten, as of today, 3 of the top 6 players in the state of Georgia.
Mhm.
Which is okay. Like, there's a reason why if you look at all the other pictures I have on here, right, for these things, we'll get to this one in a second. I can't wait to talk about it. There we go, greatest graphic ever made. But this one here, the reason why I didn't cut the background out, people wonder why anyone would want to go to USC, and it makes me laugh every time. It like look at the picture.
Yeah. Now I know USC is technically in Compton. It's a private school,
Mhm.
University of Southern California. It's elite academically. Obviously, you can make the argument that people don't like college sports that much out there. I went to UCLA 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'd never been to Westwood, and I got to UCLA, and I was like, "This place is awesome." I was like, "This
Dude.
place is so sick." I couldn't believe it. And this is when I was working with Aaron Murray, and I was texting with
Mhm.
Aaron. I was like, dude, UCLA is the greatest place ever. He told the story. He's like, I took an official visit there. Rick Neuheisel picked me up. He was the head coach. He goes, I literally called my parents. I was about to commit. And my parents were like, hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. Like, let's just think. He was like, I fell in love at first sight. That place is incredible. It really
Right.
is. Like those schools out there, they're beautiful. It's perfect every day. You're in Southern California. The scenery, not just the palm trees, is spectacular.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, not just, hey, here's some NIL dollars and we're going to compete now in the Big Ten, why people would want to go there.
So one of the things I thought was interesting about this was, again, you're taking 3 players out of the state of Georgia. This is fascinating to me for a number of reasons. It blows my mind when in this day and age when I look at people who talk about recruiting and they're like, all right, get the big 3, Texas, Florida, California. Who's the best state after that? Georgia has passed the state of California so many years ago, like
No question.
easily in the last 10 years, without question, right? So what it was interesting to me is like you used to see a lot of this, like Tennessee was really big on this, and you can see it now with Nico. But when Tennessee had a national recruiting footprint,
huge
in California, it's where all the Clausens were from. Jesse Mahalena was from out there, or Hawaii, or one of those two very different places. But when you talk about like going out to California in a recruiting hotbed or fertile recruiting ground, all that kind of stuff, it kind of feels like those roles are reversed when you talk about USC coming to Georgia and getting commitments from the state. Now, again, it's March. We don't know if these are going to stick around, if they're going to be the same or not, whatever. I will say what was most interesting to me was you saw it with Bear Alexander. I think that Bear Alexander is the poster child for what USC is pitching. And Lincoln Riley said they have really gone out and tried to increase the NIL stuff since he got there, especially from this spring. Bear Alexander, I think, got like $800,000 or something like that. He got I know he got an $800,000 apartment. If you're 18.
The Bear Alexander thing, and I don't know this to be true, this is just me guessing, the timing around his commitment to USC, if you piece the dots together of when the communication supposedly happened and then all of a sudden he's thinking about it, really funny that Georgia was in LA for a national championship game for about a week. And then all of a sudden right afterwards, it's like Bear Alexander might commit and transfer to USC. I mean, going back to our original conversation of unmitigated free agency, something smells there.
Yeah.
But to your point, what you're making here is I think USC comes to the state of Georgia. They say, hey, we're here because we know the best talent is here.
Yep.
We're recruiting you because we want to take the best talent and bring it to our school. If you go to Georgia, you're just another jersey. That's what they're telling these kids. If you come to USC, you're the guy, right? And you're going to start,
Right.
and you're going to be the guy who can then beat the team of the home state that you're from. That's
Right.
the whole recruiting pitch. You make these kids feel more important. You make them feel like they're a big fish in a little pond. And for some, that's what they want. And they don't necessarily want to be in the shadows of the guys that they've been competing against in high school for years and years, and that they watch every Friday and Saturday growing up. So I don't disagree with it. Now it's time for Lincoln Riley to actually develop those players that aren't quarterbacks.
Well, and I tell you what you said, I think, is all factual. There's also a tremendous amount of power in the words that you're saying of, you're just another guy at Georgia. Come to USC and you can be a star. Because 20 years ago, you talk about going to USC, a college football blue blood, and now that's the people that are put on the full court press to recruit you. There's a lot of power in that. I also want to apologize to you because I think I'm to blame for what you guys are doing right now on the basketball court.
I know. Well, I mean, I call it the dogs disappearing act. Ohio State's on a 17-0 run. This is what they do. They've got to learn how to withstand this. Thankfully, there's 4.5 minutes left, and Blue Cane just made a 3.
Okay, you're ahead of me too, so I hate you for that. Also,
but Jarvis Jones went to USC. Roquan Smith went to UCLA. I mean, think about that. Yeah. It was the same pitch back then. And Jarvis Jones, who I love, he got inducted into UGA's Circle of Honor, which is the highest honor that any student athlete can get. He gave an amazing speech, and what he said was, sometimes even the GPS gets it wrong. Meaning, hey, I went out to USC. Obviously, he went through his injury stuff. He came back to Georgia. He became an All-American. Same thing with Roquan. I mean, he was out at UCLA, stuck in purgatory.
He started at UCLA?
Yeah. He committed to UCLA. And then he came over to Georgia. And, of course, all-time linebacker. Georgia just tied it up 70-70.
It's also something about the fact that, there you go, tied it up. There's also something to be said for the mystique of California, which is, as you and I as adults look at living in California, and I was very close to living in California not that long ago. And San Francisco used to be my favorite city in the world. It was awesome. Loved going out there. It's expensive as shit, but I loved it. You could not pay me to live in California right now. But I think with these kids, there's something still where you're like, man, it's like the mystique of Hollywood, the mystique of LA. That's a different life, man. That's a cool. If you're from South Georgia and you're living in a penthouse in LA, that's a cool thing.
No doubt. And Roquan he spurned UCLA. They said he was committed. He never signed his national letter of intent. Then he came to Georgia. So that was fact check.
I would say another thing too is those matchup breakdowns I do during this time of year, which is like my favorite
content. Yes. Awesome.
I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Dude, the UCLA one, I was telling somebody, they were like, do you remember when Bama played UCLA? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, some other question was like, what do you remember most about that? And I was like, if I'm being honest, what I remember most about that game was the Adderall rabbit hole I went into the night before, looking at the alumni page from UCLA, because it's insane. It like Jackie Robinson and James Franco on the same. It's insane. So, all right, let's talk about somebody else from USC real quick, because I thought this was hilarious for a number of reasons.
He's a different cat. He's a different cat, no question.
I mean, you just some gloss ass shit instead of boss ass shit. He is seen last night at the USC women's basketball game, and he's holding a pink phone case. Yeah. I didn't think that
with keychains. Do you carry keychains?
That was the part that was
wrapped around the finger, like a little high school girl. That was my biggest gripe. I'm like, what is that all about?
That is every girl coming out of the tanning bed with a Playboy bunny right below her belly button.
Yes.
With that thing just making all the noise in the world.
Funny. But you know what bothered me the most? His hair. Can we get a fresh
you were bothered by it?
Can we get a fresh tape? Can we get a lineup? Can we get the neck trimmed up a little bit? Dude, you're about to be the #1 overall draft pick. Dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. Come on now.
He did look a little bit rugged, I guess is what the word I'll use for that. Now, this is what I thought was funny about this was people overreacted. And I think there's still, especially in football, there's still like a macho type thing. The pink part didn't bother me at all. I had a rose gold phone case, I think, at one point, like when I was like 8 years ago. And
that like
whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Paint your nails. Do whatever. I don't give a shit as long as you win football games. I don't care. Like, there's rumors now that he might be gay. I will say this. that doesn't bother me at all either. The LGBTQB like meme that came out was hilarious.
That was funny. And if he's gay, who cares? Then he's an ass kicker. And
Right.
like that. And you know what? I don't think he is. Not that it matters, but he's a baller. Like, who cares? Right. NFL teams don't care either. They're like, this kid is a generational talent.
Especially at that position. I always said this. There was not a sick part of me, but there was just a trolly part of me that really wanted Najee Harris to be gay at Alabama. Because if you remember in 2019, the game against South Carolina where he has this 4th and 5 where he catches the pass in the backfield, hurdles a dude, stiff arms another, drags him in the end zone, goes in the end zone and does this. And it was like from the Megan Rapinoe Women's World Cup thing. Bama fans lost their minds on this. And it was like, I'm not going to be watching Bama football. I've been watching Bama football for 54 years. I got to put my season tickets up for sale because he's honoring Megan Rapinoe. I was like, dude, please win the Heisman and in the announcement say you're gay so I could watch people's heads literally explode.
People are crazy, man. Obviously, social media is a cesspool. If Caleb Williams, and I think I don't know who tweeted it out, but they said, it was like you know who it was? It was that Ari Marav guy. No, it wasn't. It was the Dov Kleiman, the aggregator. He just said, and I read it, and I thought it was actually a really good point. He goes, for as much shit as Caleb Williams relentlessly takes on social media, he always takes the high road. You never see him get into the mud. I mean, obviously he chirped back at Jack Mack from Barstool today, and that was funny, tit for tat. Like, hey, if you dish it, you got to be able to take it. So I'll be really interested to see when the Bears pick him number 1, maybe how his personality shifts, because then he's going to be the guy, and the media spotlight's going to be massive. Chicago is desperate for a superstar at quarterback. And you know what? If he's great, he can do whatever the hell he wants, and the Bears fans will love him.
I will say this too. Like, the Jack Mack thing was hilarious for a number of reasons. As I told you off air, I'm not a fan of Jack Mack because of one specific instance last year with Kevin Sullivan from UF Baseball, and the story he put out about his affair that wasn't real, and it came out at the worst possible time, and it was all just so maliciously ignorant, and I hated it. I will also tell you this: watching the back and forth today, that's what social media is good for. If you missed it, he makes a comment. He's like, "No, pink phone case is crazy. Not gonna lie." Caleb Williams' response to your profile pic is crazy. Not gonna lie. And so the next day, I don't know if you saw the video, but Jack Mack goes into the Barstool headquarters or whatever in New York, and he's like, "You see, I got roasted from Caleb Williams. He owned me. It was like, very public, blah blah." So he goes up to this other person in the he was like, "Hey, I need you to get me a new headshot. I got roasted from such and such. Sure you saw it." So they're taking these pictures, whatever. And he's like, "Yeah, what do you think?" And he hands him the phone. And as he grabs the phone, the back of the phone case is like pink hearts all over the back of the phone case, and he's got his fingernails painted. That was funny. Like, that's when social media can be good.
Yes. So. Totally agree.
All right, as this game is winding down.
Yeah, I'm at 52 seconds. Georgia down by 1, and Justin Hill, a little work inside. I'm not going to do play-by-play, but it's coming down to the wire.
I hate that I'm behind. I also so this is, you're a gambling man. We talk about this all the time, like just in normal everyday life, and every time we're on the podcast.
Dogs up by 1, 36 seconds left.
I hate that I'm behind on this. So
Evan,
you guys win.
Bears fans are going to paint their nails. You're exactly right. If they start 8-0, they'll all be painting their nails pink.
1,000%. Sure. That kind of stuff could be good. That kind of stuff could be good, I think, for sports. No, so I was talking about this on social media, and some of our listeners and the people I interact with from Georgia Twitter that like me brought this up a while ago, and it was Georgia basketball, like you said, falling apart in the second half it seems like every single game. They lost 10 of the last 12 in the regular season, but still a good team and a good job from Mike White, what he's been able to do for most of the year. But Georgia to win the first half as a prop bet and then lose the full game. Do you know what that was?
Do you know what it was? Because I do not know what it was.
Plus 575.
To win the first half and lose the game outright?
They've done it like 3 times in the last 4 games. It's been money. That's
a good bet.
In the regular season. Yeah. So I jumped all over that. All right, we got a couple more things to go over here before we before we get out of here. We're not gonna cover this for a number of reasons.
Well, I read the
had to make
report
the
today. I read the report today.
He was under the legal limit.
He was doing 90 on South Millage. Do you know how hard that is to do? South Millage is a
Impressive.
2-lane road. That is hauling ass. Obviously,
Where's
Georgia.
South Millage?
South Millage is if you get off the loop, Millage Avenue takes you
Yeah.
into campus. South Millage goes out towards the other athletic facilities. So it's where the golf course is, where the softball field is. It's where some of the other fields are. It's where a lot of the neighborhoods are that some student athletes live at. And then the police officer said he was pedal to the metal at 90 and the car that he was chasing was gaining. So like he wasn't catching up. I don't know, man. I mean, obviously, what was it? 3:30 a.m. You just and the DUI less safe. I didn't even know that was a thing in Georgia. I guess it was because 1, he didn't do a field sobriety test, and 2, he's 19 or 20. So if there's any suspicion, they're going to tag him with that. And of course, they're going to go through the legal process. But unfortunate timing. Kirby Smart had just raved about him in the media. Great leader, great kid. He's been in here doing everything we ask of him. And then today, Coach Smart had to get on the podium and essentially say, he made a mistake. He's not going to let it define him. Discipline will be internal. Whatever the athletic association's rule book is, of course, they'll have to follow that. But with the history in the last 18 months,
this is the thing, Drew.
It's tough, man. It's just, there's no excuse. There's no excuse.
It's low-hanging fruit for outside fans and to talk about this. And like, I've tried to.
Yeah, William, I saw that too. I don't know if you saw that. Sorry to interrupt you. William said he would push the car back. The police officer asked him, I don't know what the answer or the question was, but Trevor Etienne said, I can push my car back home. I was like, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive.
Listen, if this was 1980, this would be the story my dad would tell me growing up. Like, they had this running back named Trevor Etienne.
Yes.
And he got pulled over by the cops one time and he told, but like, this is what bothers me about this. And like, one of the things that always happens on social media, especially with rival fan bases, is the moment you see something like this, you see, oh shit, oh, no, there's no foul on this?
How is that not a foul?
So
Luke Kane just got tackled.
This stuff happens, you're going to see other fan bases pile on and talk about it and stuff like that. And so, like, you know, I got sent this thing multiple times from people, like, by the time I woke up. And someone was like, you need to take a shot at Georgia about this. And I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person with my fan base to, first off, to be using the word shot in general, and then talking about, like, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff. But what really does bum me out about this is I saw people going back and forth about this. All that aside, all the shit talk aside from the fan base, what you said 18 months ago.
I know. Evan Grimes just said it. It's disrespect to Devin Willock. Yeah, I know.
You had a player pass away. And whether people want to talk about this or not, like, I was told from the entire towards the end of 2021 season, this whole street racing thing had become a problem on the team. And it was a thing. They just did. Like, the players just did.
Yeah, there was a whole article, expose, massive expose about it. Yes. Right. About street racing.
So all this happens. And there's no part of me that's saying that Jalen Carter killed someone, did anything like that. But Jalen Carter and this kid, they're street racing, and someone lost their life.
I know.
And the fact that it still goes on, it just shows to me at some level there's a lack of care. And I will say this in Georgia's defense. This isn't a Georgia player. This is a player they got from the transfer portal who still is responsible, and he has to accept responsibility for it and all that kind of stuff and be held accountable. But it does feel like there hasn't been a lot of issues with this from the team since that happened until this. But you got to clean this shit up, man.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And the fact that it has been so long since something happened, it just goes to show you that when it does happen, it's going to be exaggerated tenfold.
Right.
And that's what's happening right now. So Kirby Smart saying the same thing to the team. Guys, you've done everything we've asked you to do for the last 18 months. Obviously, we've cleaned some things up. But if it happens, these are the consequences. And thankfully, nobody got hurt in this instance.
Yeah.
Looks like the Dogs are about to win this game.
Yeah, so I'm going to lose that plus 575. We didn't talk about this at all, but let's just close it out with some March Madness talk. Wait.
Yeah, please.
Did Did I not download the right one? Of course I didn't. All right. Well, I don't have the March Madness one in front of me that I made clearly for this show. March Madness this weekend. Biggest takeaways. I did a full-on nerding out yesterday on the officials and the fouls that were called in the thing. I sent it to you yesterday. You did not respond, which I want you to know
I thought it was a great
response.
graphic. I thought it was a great graphic. I'll give you that much.
I appreciate that. Watching, I think like the GF was in town, her watching me write this down in pencil in a notebook in the year 2024 of every single game. So like 48 total games of how many fouls and free throws were in this. She was like, there's got to be a better scenario or a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for opening weekend, March Madness, main takeaways, any big bets you hit, anything you missed on. I think the biggest takeaways I would say for me was, man, watching Auburn lose to Yale was kind of crazy. There were some significant upsets, but that was wild for so many reasons, because we talk about this a lot in sports, but like it doesn't need the referee inserting themselves into games.
I hate referees. I hate referees across all sports.
It's an epidemic.
I can't stand them. And I talk about it ad nauseum on Punt and Pass to the point where people are like, Drew, stop it. We don't want to hear you talk about it anymore.
Right.
I cannot stand when referees aren't held accountable. I cannot stand when it becomes a ref show. I cannot stand when they make it about themselves. It's bad for the sport. They don't face any repercussions whatsoever. It drives me absolutely crazy. And it's from the NFL to the NBA to college basketball, college football. It's so annoying. And of course, when those things happen, we shouldn't be talking about that. We should be talking about what's happening on the court in these instances. Right. My favorite things from this past weekend, you love to see the Cinderellas. That's obviously not happening in this March Madness. NC State's a great story, having just won the ACC Conference Championship. DJ Burns Jr., I mean, the guy's a nose guard banging around down there. Yeah. He's fun to watch. But what I thought about, and I was sending it in a group chat with my buddies, how does Auburn lose to Yale? How does Kentucky lose to Oakland? How does that happen? In no other sport is that even possible. It's not even possible. You're talking about Oakland, a team where nobody's going to play professional basketball, who beat Kentucky, where 5 guys are 5 stars. They probably all go to the NBA. How does that happen in college football? If Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State or Michigan played Yale football, it would be a total bloodbath. That's just what happens, right? And there's no other sport, baseball, no chance, right? How come in college basketball in the tournament
every time
it happens? I mean, Yale, I see it like a team full of future lawyers just beat a team full of 4 and 5 stars. Like it's
we joke around about it a lot. There's every March there's either a team full of whites or a team with one great white hope that is just launching from 3. That dude from Oakland, Grolke or whatever, his
exclusively threes, dude.
346 attempts. The good win for Georgia here.
It's huge. Going to MSG, baby.
I love that. But no, Grolke, like 346 attempts, 8 were from 2. I will say,
all season long, he shot 8 2-point shots.
They were all at the rim. They were all layups.
Incredible, dude. That's incredible.
Yeah. The thing that Jay Wright talked about this, and I think it's like with Coach Cal. This is when you know it's bad at Kentucky. They put out a graphic today, I think it was on 3, that said Coach Cal is staying at Kentucky, and they had to do a full graphic about it. And one of the things I think is really interesting about that is the fact that Jay Wright brought up. He goes, "Listen, what he did in the one and done era was incredible. There's a 30 for 30 about it. He put out all these, all these kids that ended up going, like pro and had a great 1 year and all that stuff. They only won 1 natty with this, right? It's hard to win a college basketball national championship. But doing all that, and you look at where it's at now, he brought this up in the era of the portal, especially, the teams that are winning are veteran teams. It's time to switch that entire mindset from Cal and be like you can have these great players that are, 18, 19 years old. But if you got a team full of like 22, 23-year-olds, especially now when you have like that extra year because of the COVID, there's a lot to be said for that. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to what you brought up, and I'm going to throw up the graphic here for a second.
There you go. Love it.
Like, this is the moment this happens, I understand that people want to talk about how you shouldn't bitch and complain about the refs, but this is egregious. And I went through every single game from every single, what do you call it? Every single region. And because I was watching the Bama game against Grand Canyon, and they had at one point, they had 36 free throws, and Bama had like 15. And I was like, what the hell? So
I saw a hilarious tweet. It was like live feed of the Bama Grand Canyon game, and it was like Rucker Park, guys like swinging on each other, falling on the ground, balls going everywhere. I mean, that's what was happening in that game.
Most disjointed basketball game I've ever watched. Yeah. It was awful to watch. But you talk about like the Auburn game, Auburn and Bama, they're both in Spokane. And you look at it.
You ever been to Spokane?
No. You
don't want to go. Nothing against Spokane. Hard to get there. Not really itching to get back. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. That's fair. I saw that one of the things I saw was like, it was talking about like the refs from those first two games where like like the first round. I'm not trying to say that Auburn would have beaten Yale if they had a full squad, and Chad Baker-Mazara should not have elbowed that guy in the ribs or what. Have some more, for lack of better words, decorum. I don't, because I'm running out of thoughts here, but like at the same time, dude, you cannot throw out a player 3 minutes into a game because of that. That's such a massive impact. And when I broke down the numbers, what I thought was wild was in those two games, Bama and Auburn they both had 44 total fouls. Auburn had 25 in their first game, the most out of any team in the country. The 44 fouls in those two games were the most in any two games in the first round of the entire country. And in those two games, they combined for 119 free throws. That was above the national average by 8 fouls per game and over 18 free throws. It's just wild. Like that. I'm not saying it's why they lost, but it impacts the game so significantly. And you look everywhere else and it's like, how is that happening? How is it such a, like, not just the most, but egregiously more than everywhere else?
I mean, Houston, the game goes to overtime against Texas A&M. 4 of their starters fouled out, and they still won the game. Jamal Sheck,
you want to take a guess?
Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, fouled out, and they still won the game. It's crazy.
Do you want to take a wild guess at how many free throws and fouls were in that game? Because I remember the free throws by heart. The fouls was 52 fouls and 75 free throws.
That's insane. That's insane. It's just bad for the sport.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's close with this. Your choice. How about this? Do you want to talk about Caitlin Clark and people upset with her using bad language, or do you want to talk about the bridge?
Let's talk about the bridge. The bridge is or P. Diddy. There's a lot going on in the world right now. First off, hats off to Caitlin Clark. Who cares if she cusses? She's a total baller. Yeah. I'll tune in. I haven't been watching, but I'll tune in for the Final Four and see how far they get. I mean, like if the game's good and Twitter's going crazy, I'll flip it on. But, for me, it's just kind of out of my purview right now. It's not really appointment television, not taking anything away from how great she is. So shout out to her. And I love her dad telling her to shut up. That was cool. Yeah. That was cool.
Real quick on that's I appreciate the take. I understand where you're coming from. You also have a lot more going on in your life than I do right now. This has been appointment television for me for like a month mainly because like her games would come on at 12:30 on a Sunday, which is like right when I'm getting up.
Yeah.
And they would come out and say like she scored 20 or more points in like 45 straight games. So it's really been fun to watch. The game they had in the first round against, I think it was Holy Cross, had 3.23 million viewers.
That's incredible.
In the first round of a women's tournament, 1 versus 16, which was over 750,000 more than the previous record they had for viewers, which is awesome. Just awesome.
So awesome.
Yeah. And I'm tired of people who have never played sports weighing in on her saying bad words, her not being a role model. Like to quote like Charles Barkley, it's not her job to be a fucking role model. It's her job to go win games.
Yeah. And you know what? Like the people who say that it's such a throwaway comment. It's them trying to be relevant and holier than thou. It's so crazy. She is a bona fide star, and she can do whatever she wants as long as she's scoring 35 a night, as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
But the bridge is crazy. I woke up this morning, turned the Today Show on. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then, by 11 a.m. this morning, I saw somebody tweeted out, my buddy Clem tweeted out, never knew there were so many cargo ship captains on Twitter. I mean, everybody's breaking it down. I was like, yeah, this is crazy. You're seeing like sped up and slowed down, and was it intentional? And was the captain from Ukraine? And was there explosives on the bridge? I mean, it's insane. First off, just the logistical nightmare for that port and like what it's going to do to the Eastern Seaboard. That's crazy, tragic if people have in fact lost their life. But dude, I've never seen anything like that ever.
No. It like, you remember seeing like when you were a kid, the old stuff about like the bridges that like that had like the suspension wires messed up, and so they'd be like doing this, right? But like, it's not just the bridge fell and like broke and crumbled into like the water. It happened so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it was a full container ship that rammed into the I don't even know what this is called, the pillar.
Yeah, right.
That was insane, dude. And then it just freaking Alex Glaze. If you remember Alex, used to be on 11 Alive Sports here in Atlanta. He is a news broadcaster in Baltimore. I'm sure he hadn't slept in 24 hours. I follow him on social media. He's been all over it. But I mean, that is a national storyline. Like tonight, Lester Holt was live from Baltimore. The Today Show, they'll have people live. It is a massive, massive story. And you know, is it taking away? Was this from the Illuminati to take the attention away from P. Diddy? I don't know. These are questions we have to ask. These are questions we have to ask.
By the way, how about P. Diddy leaving the country, like just for and got out?
No. How about P. Diddy's drug mule was a former Syracuse basketball player? Did you see that?
Did not.
Yeah, it just broke probably like 6 p.m. tonight. P. Diddy's drug mule, who was detained at his house, was a former Syracuse basketball guard. He's a white kid. He
Please
looks
be
like
one of the white kids from
he
the late
is.
2000s, early 2010s.
Of course he is, dude. But he played like 2019 and 2020 at Syracuse. Crazy. I don't even know. Like, my first thought was, how on earth is that connection made?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, the world is a crazy place, and it's an election year. It's only going to get crazier, people. Buckle up.
I love a good conspiracy theory. One of my favorite quotes about this is Ron Funches. He's a comedian. He talks about
great
conspiracy theories. He's like, it's wild to say that you don't believe in any conspiracy theories. He's like, I understand not all of them, maybe not the big ones, but any, like, you think that the government's just batting 1,000? That's insane. Like, I think that's such a good point. I will also say I wanted to have a conspiracy theory about this. And I got up super early this morning. Allie went home. So I came back to the house and went back to bed. And by the time I had woken up, because I'm watching this, like, it's like 8 o'clock, whatever. I'm seeing all this stuff in the news. By the time I'd gotten back up from my, I guess, technically my first nap of the day, I see Marjorie Taylor Greene post her conspiracy theory. I was like, shit.
Oh, she chimed in on which one, Baltimore or Diddy?
She posted one on Diddy?
Oh no, I don't. I'm asking you. I didn't.
Oh no, Baltimore. If she weighs it on P. Diddy, I'm gonna lose it. I was like,
she's that meme of Biden seeing her at the State of the Union is all time. It's all time. And one of my favorite podcasts right now. Well, it's been one, Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey and David Spade. I'm a huge David Spade fan.
Oh, nice.
They now do episodes on Fridays called Superfly, and what they do is they aggregate 10 top news headlines from the previous week, and they just riff for 45 minutes.
Right.
It's brilliant. It's fun. Maybe it's something like what you and I should do around the world of college sports. But what they've been doing is they cover everything. They cover politics. They cover pop culture. But when they do the political stuff, it's very light. They're comedians. Right. Dana Carvey has a hilarious Joe Biden, Hunter Biden skit that he's been doing. And he also does a great Trump. They make fun of everybody. Yes.
He's great at impressions.
Yeah, he's 68 years old. I mean, it's just fascinating how talented he is.
Wait, he's 68?
Dana Carvey is. Yeah. So they're making fun of Biden, Hunter, Trump, everybody. Well, they post them on their social media, and the comments just explode. I can't believe you're a MAGA. I can't believe these guys they don't care. So they opened up this past episode. They're like, dude, let's just open up the comment section and look at these people eating each other alive. And they're laughing about it. It's funny, but Dana Carvey's skit with Hunter and Joe Biden is that Hunter Biden is the only one who can decipher what Joe is mumbling saying. It's so damn funny. It's so funny and lighthearted. Yeah. And then this past week, they were doing the Trump yard sale to post the bond. It's just gold. It's comedy gold. Sorry.
I will tell you this, and without getting too political, you do have to give Biden credit for the Lincoln Riley surge in recruiting, because of mentioning him at the State of the Union address was obviously huge for that program. So, all right, let's close out of here on that. This was awesome.
Oh, good stuff.
You and I still need to finalize some stuff here, but I think this all ends with us doing an additional show with, you know, Fourth and Wrong, and then Punt and Pass, and bringing some more weekly content out of this throughout the offseason, maybe in the end season as well.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's always a blast to have you on. I really appreciate it. Tell everyone they can find your stuff, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. At Drew Butler on Twitter and Instagram, at Punt and Pass. But right now, off season, I'm on the radio 92.9 The Game on the Steakhouse with Steak Shapiro. So check us out if you're in the Atlanta area. Yes, sir. So having a blast. I appreciate you. And it's like spring cleaning, so the kids are down, and my wife is like cleaning the house without me. So when you asked for 8 p.m., I was like, "Yeah, of course, dude. I'll gladly do that."
We can do this every day this week. I got nothing. I'm watching One Tree Hill. I'm almost done with it. Thank God.
There you go.
All right,
oh yeah, and I do have to mention Georgia swept Bama in baseball this past weekend. Yeah, bye.
We'll talk about this off air.